Okay, so welcome everybody, and as you can see, my name is Jennifer and I live here in Dubai, where I am a freelance education consultant and trainer, teacher trainer and trainer of teacher educators. To start with, I've put a proverb or part of a proverb on the screen, which you will have seen in the title for my session, and I just want you to take a moment to think about what we mean by two heads are better than one. And then I'm going to show you the second half of this proverb, and we can explore that together afterwards. So just a quick moment. What does two heads are better than one mean to you? Okay. But the second part of the proverb deepens this idea a little bit further. So, but 10 heads without wit are as good as none. Now, this is a very old proverb from the 1500s, hence the rather old English, but see if you can think what that might mean. So what we can say here, I think, is that it suggests that groups of people sharing ideas can be more powerful than one person or who's thinking or working alone. And we believe that providing a space where people from similar professional contexts can come together and discuss and exchange ideas is a good idea, and it's a growing phenomenon. We know there are many more communities coming up online, probably as I'm speaking now. However, one of the key factors that this proverb suggests is that we need to make sure that those collaborations have purpose behind them and intention, so that we don't just have a talking shop. So I just wanted to put that thought out there to start with, because my session today is all about a community of practice, or a professional learning community. And here are the two aims that I would like to cover today. So first, I want to take a brief look at how multidisciplinary online communities can help those of us who work in English language teaching and learning, and how they can expand and deepen our knowledge, our skills and our attitudes. And secondly, how our online community is more than just a talking shop, as I mentioned a moment ago. In other words, how collaborations can really lead to creativity, criticality and innovation. So I just want to tell you a very little story to start with. So back in April 2020, I've got to fly. Let's try and get hold of the fly. Back in 2020, COVID hit, didn't it? And it rather knocked our world sideways. And I think those of us working in ALLT, like myself, and many of you out there, had to adapt and get creative to keep our show on the road, so to speak. And in the case of teacher trainers and trainers of teacher educators like myself, we had to get creative too. Everything changed. And it turns out that out of some of these difficult times we found ourselves in, we had time to explore avenues that we'd not previously had the time to do. And a group of like-minded people came together, myself included, to create an online community that could bring ALT practitioners together from around the world in these difficult times. But I think there was one difference maybe to what we have been doing or are doing, in that we reached out to experts in a variety of sub-disciplines and complementary disciplines, and we asked them to become community mentors, to share their knowledge and their skills, and lead meaningful discussions and support members in exploring their own ideas and trying out different things in their own classrooms, virtually or in face-to-face situations. Our little community we call Globe, it's an evolving online space, and we're monitoring our developments so that we can share our understanding of these multidisciplinary communities with the wider ALT community. So as our community grows, we will be conducting research and feedback so that we can share that with people outside of it, like yourselves on this particular conference. I'm just going to move a note. There we go. So what does Globe look like at the moment? What does it mean in terms of sub-disciplines? So Globe's got members from 22 countries. We've got a central hub online where members can navigate around the space. They can do the usual thing, find resources, ask community questions, do all the usual things, but we also have little groups of what I'm going to call mini PLCs, so dedicated spaces around a particular topic that could be associated with or complement English language teaching and learning. And I just want to, in no particular order, just share some of those spaces that we've created. Now you can see they're quite diverse, and some of them have more obvious links to ELT maybe than others, but they are a small representation, and each of these spaces differs in how much activity is going on, because it depends on who's in the community, what they'd like to do now, what they'd like to find out more about, and so on and so forth. So they're quite dynamic, and they also grow as people find a need for another community. So we keep adding to our little communities as we go, and we keep seeking new mentors to lead them and support those within them. So before I share some examples of how this multidisciplinary approach can bear fruit, just let's take a moment to clarify what we mean by creativity, innovation and criticality, because these are three key factors that lead our community and underpin what we're trying to do. So when it comes to looking at what creativity means, I've turned to a really inspiring speaker who I'm sure some of you have come across, Sir Ken Robinson. He's done a lot of TED Talks and inspired many educators around the world. And he's come up with a rather neat definition of what we might mean by creativity. And he says there are three related aspects that come together in terms of creativity. So can you guess the word that might go in the green space? What would be the first related idea? You've got an idea, have a think, and then I'll do a big reveal. Okay, so there you go. So the first one is imagination, and some might say thinking outside the box. Sorry, bad call. Thinking outside the box, maybe in business speak. It's where it all begins, if you like. But let's say we've been imagining something or brainstorming some ideas, maybe forming an online community like we're doing here. What do we do with those imaginings or thoughts? So have a look at the definition that sort of comes after the red space. What do you think that word could be? Any ideas? Okay, let's have a reveal. It's the word itself, it's creativity. So we start getting creative. We take our ideas or our imaginings and we start to consolidate them. We think about who or what might benefit from our ideas. We take our mind map and distill it, identify key points that have some value. But then what do we do with all of that? And I think this is the key one coming up last and by no means least. In the blue space, what could that word be? Any ideas? It's innovation. And if we follow Sir Ken's train of thought, then it's clear that creativity and innovation really are inextricably linked. And more importantly, where we are seeking to be innovative, we need to create an environment that fosters imagination and creativity to get us there. And again, this is something that we're trying to do within our community, foster that environment. And just one final thought before we look at some examples of what we've been up to. Where does criticality fit into this sandwich of creativity and innovation? What do we mean by that? So we know what we mean by creativity, but criticality, I think, again, we turn back to Sir Ken. He has it in a nutshell, I think, here. So critical thinking, we know, is a really common theme in our learners' 21st century curriculums, and it plays a really important role in our own quest for professional development too. So this means that whatever we do in our online communities, including those that are multidisciplinary like our own, it's a good idea to provide opportunities as well. and those opportunities would involve critical evaluation, appraisal, self-reflection, and peer or mentor feedback to ensure that our creativity and innovation is the best that it can be. So now I've got about 10 minutes to go according to my stopwatch. So I just want to take this time to share some ideas of the sort of things that we do within our little multidisciplinary community, in particular certain aspects of it. And I've picked the first one as an example from our Materials and Resources Development PLC. One of our members is the director of a language academy in Spain. And he's found that more and more adults are coming into his academy to talk about courses, but not signing up because, one, the courses are too long for them to commit to, or two, they want to concentrate on specific areas of their language skills development, not the wider concept of language learning. He didn't have any short sort of skill-specific courses available on his programs, so he decided to create them himself. And he contacted the mentor who's leading our Materials and Resources Development PLC to talk through his ideas. And she in turn supported him in developing his course framework and also the approach that he wanted to take. He's now created his first set of materials for B2C for adult learners with the idea that this will build writing skills around a specific set of text genres relevant to workplace and also further learning. Now, at this point, we've got to the stage. We've had our creativity, if you like, and innovation. He's been brainstorming, developing ideas. But then he now needs to sort of critically analyse what he's doing and see if it's where it needs to be. So he has reached out to members within the community. He's speaking with colleagues or members in Spain. He's speaking with members in UK, and he's speaking with members over in Egypt. And asking them to road test his materials and then give him some feedback so that he can see what needs to be adjusted, what can be made better. So he's really aiming for best practice and best quality through asking his fellow members to support him in his critical analysis. In terms of cross-discipline relevance, one thing I think we could say here is that in this community of ours, we have very diverse membership. So some of our members, for example, are EMI teachers, which we touched on briefly with Anna's session. And his approach and his framework that he's been working with may be of use for them to adapt in their classroom as well. We also have a lot of teacher trainers in the community, and again, they might find that the process that he's using and the framework he's created may have an application which they could use or adapt for some of their training sessions. If, for example, they're creating a module on importance of mental health and well-being for teachers and learners. So we believe that what he is creating has wider benefit to the community too. And then another one I wanted to talk about was the Visual Arts PLC. So we have a wonderful Visual Arts PLC, and we recently had a webinar led by a lady, a professor who is working and living in Verona in Italy, and she, together with her PhD student, led a fantastic session for us on visual thinking strategies and skills and strategies. And this concept grew out actually of a museum context and education for people working in museums. And the idea was that a suite of 3 questions could be used to enable people to examine visual art and examine all aspects of it at a deeper level. But it turns out it's also a creative and innovative way to encourage language learners to develop observational language and talk about what they see, how they can expand their statements. So it's got a real application across into a completely different area of learning, if you like. And she brought this to us, and we are now getting very excited about going out and potentially using this in our own classrooms. What also this approach, if you like, this visual thinking strategies approach showed us was that it encourages learners to engage in their critical thinking, and it encourages teachers to reflect on how they use questions in the classroom, and how to word questions to find out what the sort of words that maybe have a negative connotation. For example, I understand if we change what more can you see to what else can you see, learners tend to think they must have forgotten something, whereas more suggests that they can go deeper. And obviously, I've mentioned this is in terms of cross-discipline relevance. It means that visual arts can encourage us to be more observant and critical in our language learning. Now, I'm going to skip my last one because I gather we're up to 5 minutes, but I would another time, if we have time in the panel discussion afterwards, happy to share some of the other ways that we have used our community to encourage criticality, creativity and innovation. But my final thought today for you is that we are a new community. Sorry, I'm just putting my notes on the table. We were born out of, if you like, almost adversity, but I think that we now feel that what we are doing is something that we can take a lot further and we can learn from and share our experiences with other people. So our anniversary comes up in April, and our intention then is to do some reflection, is to reach out to our membership, to ask them to give us feedback, and for us to develop a better and deeper understanding of how we can take our community forward and how we can share this findings with other people. And thank you very much, everybody.